According to the World Bank, Nigeria's economy experienced a significant reversal of gains between 2015 and 2022, being the Buhari administration. Despite progress made under President Olusegun Obasanjo's and President Umaru Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan, the World Bank's latest Nigeria Development Report states that the country's GDP per capita decreased by about 1/3 during this period.
The World Bank attributes the economic decline to inconsistent macroeconomic policies, contraction in the oil sector, and external shocks. The report specifically criticized President Buhari's administration for widening fiscal deficits and increasing debt pressures. However, the report praised President Bola Tinubu's reforms, citing improvement in foreign exchange, monetary policy, and fiscal consolidation. Now, joining us is investment banker and public affairs analyst Nnaemeka Obiaraeri. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, sir. Good to see you.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. One of the major arguments that people have with regards to Buhari administration is that it almost had no choice. For example, when you speak about the ways and means and the 23 trillion naira that was taken from ways and means by the Buhari administration, that Nigeria cannot point to anything really that it achieved from that from the ways and means loan. A lot of people would say, well, the government had no choice. Nigeria was completely broke. There was nothing that the government could have done instead, or rather other than take those loans, including foreign loans. Do you agree with that perspective? Was President Buhari stuck in a situation where he had no other choice but to just continue to take loans to be able to run the country?
Oh, sorry again. Those who put up such lame arguments do not understand how economies work. Buhari did not inherit a dead economy. And I want us to look at the numbers, factual and empirical. The World Bank report is 110% spot on. Buhari did not inherit an economy that was dead. When Buhari became president, Buhari inherited a country that had a GDP of a foreign reserve of about $29 billion. Buhari inherited a country that was producing average of 2.3, 2.4 million barrels of crude oil every day. Buhari inherited total national debt profile of 12 trillion naira, total external debt position of $10 billion. It was unlike what Obasanjo inherited when he became president in 1999. Obasanjo's case was worse. Obasanjo inherited a country that had a national reserve of $5 billion, $3.9 billion in Cumbad, 1.7 million barrels crude oil production a day, and a country that was a pariah nation with a serviceable debt position of $32 billion. But he went to work, recruited some of the best technocrats, and reversed the fortune. Basically, like what Bank said, Buhari destroyed this economy. He set us back 50 years, not just 16 years. What did he do? I will enumerate it line by line. Firstly, crude oil output was 2.3 million barrels a day. Crude oil price never went below $35 per barrel. It was about $42, $56 average. Under Obasanjo, for the first time of Obasanjo, crude oil price hovered between $17.35 to $28. So it was a different case. He had an economy that was still had a positive GDP growth of about 3%. The first thing he did that got us back to where we are today was if he wanted to tamper with the amnesty program of the Niger Delta people. He was warned. Of course, in his obstinacy, he continued. By the time the militants went into the creeks and started bombing the assets, output came down to 1.2, 1.1 million barrels a day. In fact, if not that he was ill for 104 days, that gave Oshibanjo the opportunity of negotiating and stopping the madness, we would have been even worse than we are today. The second thing he did with Emefiele was that for the first time, Nigeria was one of the two countries that we are allowed to list our debt instruments on the JP Morgan Chase and Barclays bond index. It provided a two-way transparent quote window that allowed investors to bring in their monies and gauge their risk and return. The first thing Buhari and Emefiele did was to, first of all, create multiple exchange rate windows that created room for arbitrage and massive criminality of round-tripping a number of criminality within that sector. JP Morgan warned us. Every other international investor warned us. We refused. Immediately, JP Morgan Chase yacked us from that index. Barclays followed suit. And the foreign investor could not see any transparent window to be able to invest in Nigeria. they started pulling out. Before December 2015, over $78 billion flew out of Nigeria. And that was what led to our first recession in 2016. So, and again, if you look at the oil and gas sector, which is our working capital, Kachukwu Ibe was doing a good job as GMD of NNPC. The first thing Kachukwu did was to do an audit and clean up of the criminality in the downstream oil and gas sector. When we are being told that we consume 45 to 52 million liters of PMS a day under the Ziani, Kachukwu was able to trim it down to 35 million liters a day. For whatever reason, Kachukwu was removed and Mike Antiparu came in. Under Buhari as petroleum minister, before you knew it, the numbers moved to 55 to 66 million liters a day. In fact, it got to a ridiculous height in 2021 when we are being told that Nigeria imported and consumed 73 to 93 million liters of PMS a day, and which is a criminal Ponzi scheme, because if you look at the trajectory and records of PMS volume consumption across the whole world, the highest we will have seen was between that period was nations that had increased in 15 to 20%. Of course, these are nations where you had purchasing power on the rise, the economy was booming. Even at the height of our economic boom under Obasanjo, we never had consumption above 27 million liters a day. In fact, at the time, we had over 4 million middle-class population that earned between $110,000 to $150,000 a year as annual salary. But under Buhari, the number went bonkers. We were even told that, oh, it was smuggling to our neighbors. If you look at the daily consumption of PMS from Niger to Chad to Cameroon to Benin Republic, Togo to Mali, total consumption of those countries a day was about 10 million liters. So even if you add it to the plausible consumption of 32 to 38 million, there was no way. Basically what happened was they were not importing anything. They were busy playing Ponzi games, paying subsidy for what they will never consume here. And to even make matters worse, they spent 16 trillion naira on subsidy. They printed 23 trillion naira, $65 billion that are not attached to any productivity. Basically what they did, if you look at the records of export and import then, total dollar inflow into Nigeria from different sources for that 8-year period was $635 billion. Total outflow from the former window was about $452 billion. Basically what they did was they were printing dollar. They were printing naira to round $3. And that was, there was a lot of criminality that happened then. And that was why we saw an multiple exchange rate window where the official exchange from the former black market was about 200 naira difference under Obasanjo, under Jonathan, under Yar'Adua. The arbitrage window between the official market and was not more than $1.50. So there was no room for round tripping. Buhari and Emefiele created room for people just buying dollar and reselling dollar, using naira to buy dollar at official window, and tripping and taking it out of this country. So basically, in a Senate climb, most of those who participated in that regime should have been made to vomit money and account for their atrocious deeds. We are where we are today, and I tell you the truth. It will take this country 2 years of consistent, solid, across the 3 tiers of government, professional and creative economic practice and reasoning to take Nigeria out. Who can dream this country? Because what he did can actually be reversed. But the challenge is the current team in power from the federal to state and local government must have to sit down and restructure this country, both from the physical and cultural point of view, and in terms of productivity, to help us recover from this mess that we have seen ourselves. You've
said that it will take the country 2 years for us to see some form of an improvement. At the Nigerian Economic Summit, we had the representative from the World Bank who told us it would take about 10 to 15 years. With what you've seen so far with how this administration has been run, President Bola Tinubu's administration, which interestingly said they were coming to ride on the work that President Muhammadu Buhari had started. Do you think that, first of all, the fact that they inherited a broken economy or a terrible economy or a bad economy is excuse enough, one? And with the way the administration has been run so far, are they doing things differently from how President Muhammadu Buhari did?
Olive, to be very sincere, if those in Abuja and the states and local government are sincere, patriotic, empathetic, and compassionate about the situation of over 197 million Nigerians that live under poverty and do the right thing, we can fix this economy in less than 2 years. And I will explain to you why. They are not doing what they are supposed to do across the 3 tiers of government. Firstly, this government inherited a total debt profile of about 77 trillion from 12 trillion when Buhari became president. External debt of $42 billion from $10 billion when Buhari became president. Nigeria was totally broken. The crude oil production was at 1.1 million barrels a day. But they didn't do the right thing. Of course, they had good policy pronouncements, but it was not back. Any pronouncement must be supported with underlying factors and actions that will make it work. Firstly, we have 2 focused critical sectors in Nigeria. So those sectors are the oil and gas, which are working capital economy sector, and then the agro value chain, which is the lowest hanging fruit to rescue us. Because Nigeria does not yet have the technology to go to the moon or to begin to pursue things that have border on the robotics and AIs. The first thing that we must tackle is corruption and insecurity. We know under Buhari, we wasted $27 billion. When he became president, the insecurity was limited to the Northeast. By the time Buhari left, insecurity had been shared across the 6 regions. To the extent that even one of the most peaceful regions in Nigeria before Buhari became president, the Southeast became a den of robbers and bandits. What this government can do, both at the federal and state government, to rescue this country, it's very simple. Insecurity must be tackled for us to be able to go into massive productivity on the lowest hanging fruit, the oil and gas, the agri value chain. On the oil and gas sector, we need to, I will break it into 2. For insecurity to be tackled, we must overhaul the current security architecture of Nigeria. What we have is a centralized, inefficient system. I've always advocated this. Nigeria has 8,809 electoral wards. Every security is indigenous. The indigenous people have that filial affiliation to protect their lives, their properties, and that of their children. In each of these electoral wards, create 100 agro rangers. 100 agro rangers that will be used to protect 500 to 1,000 hectares of agro-industrial clusters. The local government chairmen and governors, this falls within their purview. These agro rangers will come under the supervision of the National Security Advisor, the governors, and whoever that will be appointed to head it in each state, maybe a retired military man or a former DSS director. What is their role? Properly train them, equip them with AK-47, with drones. Innocent and not can provide us with 3 armored personnel carrier in every local government area. If you have this in every ward, what we will have is about this, and these guys are going to be paid not from the fiscal revenue. We will have a security trust fund, of course, that will also have contributions from the value chains that will be created from those agro clusters. When you have these guys, all they do is train them properly and post them back to their communities. Let me tell you, this state governor said something very interesting. If there is political will and the people are empowered, the bandits are known. They are not unknown government, just like we call them in the Southeast. They can be decapitated in 2 weeks because the people will pursue them and will destroy them. When we do this, we've done the numbers. To set up this will take about $3.75 billion. The current expenditure will take about $1.6 billion annually to run them. From those agro clusters, it will take about $6 million to develop those agro clusters under a missions community development private-public partnership framework. If this is $15 billion investment, we can borrow this fund tied to this project, not like the $3 trillion that was printed and looted. By the way, from each clusters, we will have annually over $42 million revenue. That is $109 million revenue and productivity. We will have 99% food self-sufficiency and we'll be able to export nothing less than $200 billion agro commodities. We will have indigenous securities that will match the criminals, the bandits, ISWAP, Boko Haram, the militia bandits, fire to fire, lawful terror, the task on lawful terror. We will tackle that. On the oil and gas sector, we know what to do. Obasanjo saw this before he left in 2007. We will follow the Petrobras route, unbundle NNPC. NNPC, as it is today, is a nest of criminals and criminality. Follow the Petrobras. Federal government must, today is valued about 60 billion NNPC. Divest federal government 72% shareholding there. 30% to core investors, 42% to Nigerians. List on the floor of the exchange. Do IPO of $20 billion. When you do this, we will have over $60 billion coming to the federal account. And NNPC will become efficiently run like Petrobras, like the liquefied natural gas of Nigeria. And if you do this, new investment will come into Nigeria. We have an oil reserve of about 37 billion barrels. We have a gas reserve of about 206 trillion standard cubic feet, which is even, we are a rich, gas-rich country. When you open that space up, those refineries that have not been working will work. Output will go back to 2.4 million barrels a day, even 3 million barrels. And now we amend the laws. We will not allocate marginal fuel again to anybody who will just extract and export crude oil. For you to get marginal fuel or to get OPL, you must set up refineries here. With this arrangement, we'll be able to meet our OPEC quota and have enough food production that will refine and take over the sub-Saharan African market. On the maritime side of blue economy, we can generate about $27 billion. And it's very simple to do. Nigeria is a transshipment hub for West Africa with a waterway, coastal waterway of almost about 800 kilometers. We will tweak our activities at the MPA, at the MASA, at whatever they are doing in that sector, in such a way that the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa will begin to import through Nigerian ports. We'll bring efficiency in that place. Customs should not be responsible for revenue collection. Customs should stay at the border, not in the hinterland and at the exit port. Revenue collection should be streamlined and centralized in such a way that and be digitalized so that over 80% of the leakages are stopped. These are some of the things. Let me tell you, to fix Nigeria economy is the easiest thing to do. We have everything going for us. We can make this economy work. We can restore Nigeria and turn this economy from the current $192 billion sized, according to World Bank projection, to $1 trillion in the next 10 years. If we have the right people with the right head, at the different MTAs and across the different governance centers in Nigeria. But the problem we have, and that problem remains, that the current gladiators across the 3 tiers of government are still doing repeat race of what happened under Buhari over the last 8 years.
We have like less than a minute. If you can answer this question, please, as quickly as possible. You know, there are several recommendations made by the World Bank, one of which is social protection, the conditional transfers will come into conversation. Is that a sustainable plan, protecting the vulnerable through conditional transfers?
World Bank is part of the problem in Nigeria. Nigeria does not need most of this, their warped colonialist mentality and advice to survive. Nigerians are not lazy. Let me tell you, Olive, the average Nigerian with his limbs and hand and legs intact, with his sight and thinking faculty intact, can easily produce 300,000 naira revenue every month if gainfully employed. I will show you sector by sector things we can do to create over 60 million jobs annually in this country. This conditional cash transfer that was introduced under Buhari, this Babiala mentality, will not save this country. I've never seen any country that has ever exited poverty through this cash transfer. China never exited poverty through cash transfer. China exited poverty through massive literacy, education, and knowledge of their people. The same thing with Singapore. Go and look at the 10 most developed economies. They have literacy level, knowledge-driven economy, 98%. The first thing we would do, just like Osadege said, we must constantly amend our constitution to ensure that we will insert in the constitution 45% of every of our revenues and borrowings must be invested, 25% in education, 20% in health, so that we will not have avenue for this kind of. If we have investment in education and make it compulsory, it is punishable for 1 year imprisonment without option of fine if any child, the parent of any child, allows him or her not to be in school, to have basic primary and basic primary education is forced within the purview of the state and local government. It must be compulsory qualitative education at the primary and secondary level. If we can do this and embrace technical and vocational education like the Chinese, I tell you, in 1 year, in 5 years, we will have less than 1 billion people in Nigeria, if not less than that.
All right. Well, I mean, the current administration, has, it's a work set out for it. A lot of people have argued, that if we're not doing anything different, then, we shouldn't expect to see any positive or different, results in the next couple of years. Nobody, really is patient enough to wait 10, 15 years, like the World Bank Vice President has said, but we currently don't have a choice. In another year, as we all know, majority of the conversation is going to be about 2027 elections, not even about governance anymore. Would have moved on from governance to just politics. So it's tough. But Nnaemeka Obiaraeri, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thanks for speaking with us. we, of course, wish you a great day ahead. Look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.